Welcome to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button so you don't miss any more shocking and captivating stories. Enjoy watching. When Daniel first heard the word retreat, he imagined silence, pine trees, yoga mats drying in the sun, his wife breathing deeper than she ever did at home. That was how Emily described it anyway. A women-only wellness retreat in Northern California. No phones, no distractions, just meditation, journaling, and a promise to come back reset. Daniel wanted to believe her. For 14 years, believing Emily had been the easiest thing in his life. Still, the unease began small, almost politely, like a knock you pretend not to hear. On the morning Emily left, Daniel watched her move through the house with an energy he hadn't seen in months. She hummed while packing, checked her reflection twice before zipping her bag, and wore a new sundress under her jacket. Odd, considering she claimed they'd be hiking and doing breathwork in the cold. "You sure you'll have signal?" Daniel asked from the kitchen, pretending to scroll his phone. "Barely," Emily said. "That's kind of the point." She kissed his cheek quickly, already halfway out the door. The scent of her perfume lingered long after the engine started. Daniel stood in the doorway longer than necessary, telling himself not to read into it. The first 2 days were quiet. Emily sent one short text each night. "All good. Exhausted. Love you." Daniel replied with more words than necessary, filling the silence she left behind. He went to work, answered emails, made pasta for one. He told himself that marriages went through phases. That distance didn't always mean danger. On the third night, insomnia drove him to the couch at 2:17 a.m. He wasn't searching for anything in particular when he opened Instagram. Habit, muscle memory. That's when he saw it. Emily's profile hadn't posted anything. She'd said phones were discouraged, but a tagged photo appeared in his feed. The account belonged to a man Daniel didn't recognize. Private profile, minimal bio. The photo showed a group of people standing near a lodge-style building, arms slung casually around one another. Mostly women, and one man. Daniel's eyes locked onto Emily instantly. She stood beside the man, angled toward him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Not a friendly touch, not accidental. Intimate in the way familiarity always is. The caption read, "Grateful for deep connections and honest conversations." Daniel stared at the screen, his chest tightening. He told himself it was nothing. Maybe staff. Maybe a speaker. Maybe someone's husband who came to help. Then he noticed the second photo, and the third. Different moments. Same man. Always close to Emily. He clicked the man's profile. His name was Mark Lawson. Daniel didn't sleep that night. By morning, he had constructed half a dozen explanations and torn them all down. At work, his concentration dissolved into fragments. He reread the same email 5 times. His hands shook when he poured coffee. At lunch, he texted Emily, "How's the retreat? Meeting interesting people?" The response came an hour later. Mostly women. All really open. Hard but good. Daniel read it twice. The omission felt deliberate. That evening, he went back to Mark Lawson's profile. More photos appeared as the day went on. Emily hiking beside him. Emily laughing across a dinner table. Emily sitting on a dock at sunset, her feet inches from his. None of the photos showed them kissing. None showed anything that could be called undeniable. That almost made it worse. Daniel didn't confront her. Not yet. He told himself he needed context, proof, something solid enough to stand on. Accusations without evidence felt like suicide. Instead, he started paying attention. He noticed how Emily stopped sharing her location midway through the trip, how she took longer to respond to messages, how her tone shifted, less warmth, more efficiency. On the 5th night, Daniel drank 2 beers alone and replayed memories he hadn't thought about in years. The early days. The way Emily used to lean into him when she laughed. The way she'd once cried at the idea of hurting him. He wondered when things had changed, or if they always had been this fragile, and he'd just been careless with his faith. Emily returned on Sunday afternoon. She looked different. Not guilty, not nervous, just lighter, as if she'd shed something heavy and left it behind. She hugged Daniel tightly, but the embrace felt rehearsed, like muscle memory doing the work emotion no longer could. "How was it?" he asked, helping her with her bag. "Incredible," she said without hesitation. "Life-changing, honestly." She talked while unpacking, about meditation sessions, about women sharing trauma, about clarity. She didn't mention Mark, not once. Daniel watched her carefully, cataloging details the way detectives do in movies. She avoided eye contact when she said women only. She showered immediately, as if needing to wash something off. Her phone never left her side. That night, as Emily slept, Daniel lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling. His heart pounded with a mix of dread and determination. At 3:41 a.m., he made a decision. The next day, while Emily was out grocery shopping, Daniel opened their shared laptop. He didn't know exactly what he was looking for, only that the truth had to exist somewhere tangible. He started with the cloud photo backup. What he found wasn't graphic. It didn't need to be. There were dozens of photos that hadn't made it to social media. Emily and Mark sitting close on a bed with rumpled sheets in the background. Emily wearing his jacket. A mirror selfie where her smile looked younger than it had in years. And one video. Short. Quiet. Emily whispering, "We have to be careful," followed by Mark's laugh. Daniel closed the laptop slowly. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He sat at the kitchen table for a long time, hands folded, breathing through a pain that felt both sharp and eerily calm. Upstairs, Emily returned home, humming softly as she put groceries away. Daniel listened to the sound of her moving through the house, the same house where they'd built a life, planned a future, trusted one another. And he realized this was only the beginning, because now he knew, and knowing changed everything. Daniel didn't confront Emily the next day, or the day after. That restraint surprised even him. Instead, something inside Daniel shifted into a colder, more methodical state. Less husband, more observer. He woke up each morning with a knot in his chest that never fully loosened, but he learned how to carry it without showing the strain. Emily, on the other hand, moved through the days with an unsettling calm. She laughed more. She started humming again. She spoke about the future in vague, philosophical terms. Clarity, growth, truth. Words that sounded profound but landed like evasions. Daniel watched her closely, noticing things he'd never paid attention to before. How she angled her phone away when texting. How she stepped outside to take calls. How she started going on long evening walks alone, claiming she needed space to process. Space. That word echoed in his mind like a warning siren. At night, when Emily slept beside him, Daniel stared at the soft rise and fall of her breathing and felt like a stranger sharing a bed with someone else's wife. His body still remembered her, but his trust no longer did. Every time she shifted closer, a small flinch ran through him, an instinctive recoil he hated himself for. He began documenting everything, dates, times, excuses. It wasn't about revenge yet. It was about grounding himself in reality, about proving to himself that he wasn't imagining things. Gaslighting was a quiet fear he hadn't realized he carried. This dread that if he spoke too soon, Emily would twist the story until he became the irrational one. So Daniel waited. One afternoon, while Emily showered, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Daniel didn't touch it immediately. He stared at it like it might bite. Then it buzzed again. A message preview lit up the screen. Mark, still thinking about last weekend. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. He didn't open the message. He didn't need to. The confirmation was enough. Instead, he took a photo of the screen with his own phone, his hands trembling as he did. Evidence. Something real. That night, he barely ate. Emily noticed. "You okay?" she asked casually, spearing a piece of chicken. "Just tired," Daniel said. She nodded, accepting the answer too easily. Later, alone in his car, Daniel finally let himself feel it fully. The betrayal wasn't explosive, it was corrosive. It ate away at memories, rewriting them in his mind. Trips they'd taken, arguments that now seemed rehearsed. The way she'd grown distant over the past year and blamed stress, hormones, work. He wondered how long it had been going on. Weeks? Months? Longer? The idea that their marriage might have been dying quietly, while he'd been trying to save it, made his stomach twist. Daniel did something he never thought he would do. He looked up Mark Lawson. LinkedIn was easy. Mark was a freelance photographer based in Portland. Late 30s, divorced. His page was filled with artistic portraits and travel shots. Retreats, workshops, wellness events. The same world Emily had suddenly become obsessed with. Daniel scrolled through Mark's public work and felt a bitter irony settle in. Mark's entire brand revolved around authenticity. Daniel noticed something else. Mark had attended 3 retreats in the past year. One of them, 6 months ago, had been in Arizona. Emily had taken a solo trip to Arizona 6 months ago. Daniel closed the laptop and pressed his palms into his eyes. The next few weeks passed in a strange limbo. Daniel functioned on the surface, went to work, paid bills, smiled at neighbors. But inside, he was unraveling thread by thread. He replayed conversations with Emily, searching for the moment he'd lost her. He blamed himself in flashes, for working too much, for not noticing sooner, for assuming loyalty was permanent. Yet beneath the self-blame, something harder began to form. Resolve. Daniel started preparing quietly. He met with a lawyer under the pretense of future planning. He opened a separate bank account. He copied important documents and stored them digitally. Each step felt surreal, like planning an escape from a life that still technically existed. Emily sensed the shift, even if she didn't understand it. "You've been distant," she said one night, her tone almost accusing. Daniel looked at her, really looked. At the woman he'd loved for half his life, at the subtle tension in her jaw, at the guardedness in her eyes. "Funny," he said quietly. "I was thinking the same thing." She hesitated, then turned away. "Maybe we both changed." That was the closest she came to honesty. A few days later, Daniel followed her. He hated himself for it, but he needed to see it with his own eyes. Emily had said she was meeting a friend for coffee downtown. Daniel waited 10 minutes, then got in his car. He parked across the street from the cafe and waited. When Mark walked in, and Emily stood up to hug him, long, close, familiar, Daniel's chest tightened so sharply he thought he might pass out. They sat facing each other, leaning in, laughing softly. At one point, Mark reached across the table and brushed Emily's hand. She didn't pull away. Daniel didn't take photos. He didn't record video. He didn't need to. That night, he sat alone in the dark living room while Emily slept upstairs. The house felt hollow, like a set after filming wrapped. He realized that confrontation wasn't just about exposing her. It was about reclaiming himself. But he wasn't ready yet. Not until he had everything. Because Daniel no longer wanted explanations. He wanted truth and consequences. And in the quiet of that room, with the weight of betrayal pressing down on him, Daniel decided something else too. When the truth finally came out, it wouldn't be messy or impulsive. It would be undeniable. And Emily wouldn't see it coming. Daniel chose the timing carefully. By the 3rd month after the retreat, he knew Emily's routines better than she did herself. He knew which nights she stayed late, processing with friends, which mornings she was unusually cheerful, which days Mark's name appeared on her phone under a woman's contact name, Maya W. That discovery hadn't shocked him. It had hardened him. What surprised Daniel was how grief came in waves, rather than a straight line. Some days he felt numb, like his emotions had been switched off to preserve function. Other days, the smallest memory, a mug they bought together, a song playing in the grocery store, hit him with crushing force. Still, he stayed composed, because preparation gave him purpose. Daniel gathered everything: cloud backups, screenshots, timestamps, bank statements showing hotel charges that didn't align with Emily's stories. He even recovered deleted messages using software he never thought he'd need to learn about. The words burned themselves into his mind. "I've never felt this alive. He doesn't see me the way you do. I hate lying, but I'm not ready to end it yet." The "it" was him. Their marriage, reduced to a pronoun. Daniel printed everything. He didn't know why paper felt more final than screens, but it did. Physical proof. Weight. Reality. He waited for the right moment, not out of cruelty, but because he wanted control over the narrative. He wanted to speak once, clearly, without being interrupted by tears or excuses. That moment came on a Sunday evening. Emily was relaxed, curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone. The house was quiet. No distractions. No witnesses. "Can we talk?" Daniel said. She looked up, slightly annoyed. "About what?" Daniel went to the dining table and placed a thick folder down. The sound it made, soft but heavy, cut through the room. Emily frowned. "What's that?" "Sit," Daniel said calmly. Something in his voice made her obey. He opened the folder and slid the first photo across the table, then another, then the message screenshots. He didn't speak while he did it. He let the evidence speak for him. Emily's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages faster, as if speed could undo meaning. "Daniel, she started. He raised a hand. "I'm not done." He slid the last page forward. A timeline. Dates, locations, lies matched to facts. "I know about Arizona," he said evenly. "I know about the hotel in Portland. I know Mark isn't just a friend. I know you lied to my face every day for months." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but Daniel felt no relief, only a dull, aching pressure behind his ribs. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. Daniel let out a short, humorless laugh. "You planned it. You hid it. You chose it. That's meaning to hurt me." She tried to reach for him. He stood up and stepped back. "Don't," he said quietly. The word landed harder than shouting would have. Emily broke then, crying, apologizing, reaching for explanations like lifelines. She spoke about feeling unseen, about needing connection, about how it just happened. She said Mark understood her soul. Daniel listened without interrupting. He needed to hear it, not for closure, but for clarity. When she finished, he said, "You could have left. You didn't. You cheated instead." Silence filled the room. "I'm filing for divorce," Daniel continued. "The papers are ready." Her head snapped up. "Daniel, please, don't do this. We can fix it." "No," he said gently. "You broke it. I'm just acknowledging it." He slept in the guest room that night. Emily cried behind the closed bedroom door. Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling a strange mix of devastation and relief. The truth was out, but consequences were just beginning. 2 days later, Daniel did something else. He emailed Mark. The message was short, polite, precise. "Hi, Mark. I'm Emily's husband. Or I was, until recently. I'm aware of your relationship. This isn't a threat or a plea. Just informing you that the truth is out, and the divorce process has started. You can have what's left." Mark never replied, but Emily did. She was furious. "How could you involve him?" she snapped that evening. "That was private. Daniel looked at her calmly. So was our marriage. She had no answer to that. Over the next weeks, the house became a battleground of quiet logistics, splitting accounts, dividing possessions. Emily moved out to stay with a friend. Daniel stayed behind, surrounded by echoes. Word spread slowly among friends. Some reached out. Others stayed silent. Daniel didn't defend himself. He didn't smear Emily. The facts spoke loudly enough on their own. One evening, Daniel received a message from an unknown number. "This is Mark. I didn't know everything. I'm sorry." Daniel stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "You knew enough." He blocked the number. The final confrontation came unexpectedly, on the day Emily came to collect the last of her things. She stood in the doorway, looking smaller than Daniel remembered. "I never thought you'd be this cold," she said quietly. Daniel met her gaze. "I'm not cold, I'm done." She nodded slowly, as if finally understanding something too late. As she walked away, Daniel felt something lift. Not happiness, but freedom. And that freedom would shape what came next. The house felt different once Emily was gone. Not empty, just honest. Daniel noticed it the first morning he woke up alone with sunlight filling the bedroom instead of tension. The silence no longer pressed against him. It breathed. For the first time in months, his chest didn't feel tight when he inhaled. Grief still came, but it no longer controlled the room. The divorce moved faster than Daniel expected. Emily didn't contest much. Maybe guilt made her compliant. Or maybe she was already looking forward, toward a future she'd imagined with someone else. Daniel didn't ask. He stopped needing answers from her. What surprised him was how betrayal lingered in ordinary moments. Standing in the grocery store, Daniel caught himself reaching for Emily's favorite tea before remembering there was no her anymore. Driving past the cafe where he'd seen her with Mark still made his jaw tighten. Healing, he learned, wasn't dramatic. It was repetitive, quiet, exhausting. He started therapy, something he once would have dismissed. The therapist didn't rush him or minimize anything. She helped him name what he'd lost. Not just a wife, but a version of himself who believed loyalty was guaranteed. That realization hurt, but it also grounded him. A month after the divorce papers were signed, Daniel learned the rest of the story without asking for it. A mutual friend mentioned it casually, almost awkwardly. "Emily and that guy, Mark? They didn't last." Daniel felt a flicker of something. Satisfaction, maybe, but it passed quickly. Apparently, once Emily was free to be with Mark openly, the intensity dissolved. No secrecy, no stolen moments. Just two people who realized that what bonded them was escape, not substance. Mark moved on. Emily spiraled quietly. Daniel didn't reach out. That was the real break. The closest he came to revenge wasn't loud or cruel. It was deliberate. During the divorce, Daniel had discovered something Emily didn't know. Mark's involvement with multiple retreat participants over the years. Nothing illegal, just deeply unethical, carefully hidden. Daniel didn't expose it publicly. He didn't post or accuse. He simply forwarded the information, screenshots, patterns, timelines, to the retreat organization's board. No commentary, no emotion, just facts. 3 months later, the retreat quietly cut ties with Mark. His photography stopped appearing on their pages. Workshops dried up. His authenticity brand slowly collapsed under its own contradictions. Daniel heard about it secondhand. He felt nothing, and that was how he knew he was healing. Emily tried to call him once, late at night. Daniel let it ring. She texted after. "I miss you. I ruined everything." Daniel stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the screen. For a moment, the past tugged at him. The years, the shared jokes, the life that almost was. Then he typed, "I hope you find what you're looking for." It's just not with me. He blocked her. Spring arrived quietly. Daniel sold the house and moved into a smaller place closer to work. He started running again. He slept better. He laughed without forcing it. Some days still hurt, but they didn't define him anymore. One evening, sitting on his balcony with a beer, Daniel realized something important. He wasn't bitter. He was wiser. Emily's betrayal hadn't destroyed him. It had stripped away illusions and left him standing, bruised, yes, but intact, capable of trust again someday, because now he understood its value. The story didn't end with revenge or reconciliation. It ended with choice. Daniel chose himself. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough.